Numerous reports indicate that manufacturing has emerged as the favorite target of ransomware groups and hackers. In response, a new report from Industrial Media discusses the evolution of industrial cybersecurity, its current state, and the tactics hackers are using, including phishing schemes, malware, and ransomware attacks. It also details solutions in arming manufacturers with the knowledge and resources needed to win more fights on this highly complex and ultra-competitive battlefield. Download the industrial sector's new battlefield by going to manufacturing.net/cyber. Hi, I'm Jeff Ranke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. One of the more common obstacles that we discuss here on Security Breach is how increased connectivity has combined with new Industry 4.0 technologies to constantly expand the OT attack surface for manufacturers. In the midst of all this expansion, it's easy to overlook cybersecurity concerns or to put too much trust in the embedded security features of the new assets. So while this usually brings up conversations about endpoint security, integration processes, and secure by design protocols, let's talk about something that our guest for today's episode knows and understands all too well: time. The end game of all this enhanced operational technology is to improve production efficiency. In other words, we want more output in less time. The factor that is constantly underappreciated when beginning the digital transformation conversation is the amount of time lost in the event of a DDoS or malware attack. Industry experts value downtime on the plant floor at about $250,000 an hour. That's $250,000 per hour. So just like predictive maintenance has become part of a facility's new normal, predictive cybersecurity needs to receive the same priority. Here to discuss this concept is Riley Groves, an engineer at Odyssey MDT, a leading provider of ICS and automation solutions. Thanks for the time, Riley, and welcome to Security Breach. You know, we'll learn a little bit more about Odyssey MDT as we get into the conversation, but you guys are kind of in a unique place when it comes to all this Industry 4.0 technology and integrating it. Has there been something that you've seen that's been really popular in terms of one of these areas that you see integrating more common? And what does that mean from a cybersecurity perspective? I think you may have an interesting take on that.
Absolutely. So the crux of the Odyssey MDT solution, Octoplant, over the last how many decades has been automated backup and version control for the OT layer in the manufacturing environment. But we've seen lately, especially in the past few years, a huge increase in overall eyes and overall importance on that cybersecurity of those devices in the OT layer. And we've seen over the course of time engagements with different customers in many different verticals that this is a high point from the C-suite on down, whether it's had a specific impact on their operations and their production and their security, or it's something they want to get ahead of. So we've seen a lot of interest in that cybersecurity element across the board in many different verticals, food and beverage, water, wastewater, oil and gas, anything really in that manufacturing and that industrial space. And we're really trying to get ahead of that and focus our information that we collect from those customer systems and provide that in a feedback and a reporting structure that makes it easier to pinpoint those specific vulnerabilities and better meld the IT and OT aspects of what is becoming a very heterogeneous environment on shop floors for folks. There's a lot of things out there and a lot of points of impact from a vulnerability standpoint. And I think that it's very important to get ahead of that. And we've seen that a lot in the marketplace for sure.
A couple of things you brought up there, really interesting. First of all, you're talking about a lot of buy-in from the C-suite down. I think that's unique. We don't see that in a lot of manufacturers, or at least we're seeing more of it now. In the past, we haven't seen that. Do you think there was an event or a time frame that sort of got the C-suite to really start pushing cybersecurity and being more of a champion for it, as opposed to somebody in the IT or OT sector trying to push it up and push it through to get funding?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to a lot of the news coverage that we've seen
Yeah.
with a lot of these cybersecurity breaches of very large companies. We've seen health insurance companies recently that have been breached for information, and obviously, Stuxnet was a huge issue
Yeah.
globally. But we've also seen a lot of impact for municipalities, and when you see that in the news, I'm in Pittsburgh actually, and
Yeah.
there was a municipality in the town over that was impacted by a cybersecurity breach stemming from the conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Actually, they had some Israel-based devices that were compromised as a result of that. So we're seeing that kind of top-down interest primarily because of that news coverage. You're seeing this on the front page of and newspapers and digital news sources as well, and that really resonates with folks at that top level to see that right in the news. And when you're in that C-suite, you don't want to be the company that is making that headline or that municipality that had a breach, and you kind of all have all eyes on you. No news is good news, and when
Yeah.
you when you have bad news, it can get pretty bad. So really seeing that scope of folks across the top line, really kind of pushing these initiatives and wanting to make sure that they're staying secure and have something in place, and they task those folks in the middle of going out and finding those solutions so they can understand what they are and how they can improve their business.
Yeah. It's interesting, in that capacity, cybersecurity is almost like the special teams coach of an organization. The only time you really notice is when something goes wrong. Nobody notices all the
Exactly.
snaps and all the field goal holds that go well. It's when something gets blocked or messed up, then you're accountable. Then it gets more scrutiny. You also mentioned sort of the relationship between IT and OT. And in the industrial sector, that has been tough, getting those folks talking to each other. What are you seeing now? Has it been improving? Are we there yet? What's your take in terms of those two entities coming together a little bit more?
While it is still in its infancy, we do see a lot of, especially from a cybersecurity perspective, IT folks getting involved in these OT group conversations early rather than later, and kind of
That's
kind of picking up the pieces later to make sure that they do have a secure solution deployed in their environments. So when we talk about that melding of OT and IT, we're seeing a lot more devices that are networked. So within that shop floor deployment across the OT layer, there are so many more devices that are configured within that network, and kind of locking those down is very important. But if there is a breach and you do have some type of vulnerability within that shop floor deployment, because those devices are networked, even if they are locked down, we're still seeing some potential there for a breach that not only affects a singular device, but could stretch across a family of devices, or even the entirety of that OT layer. So we definitely have a very attentive group to understanding those impacts and wanting to ensure that there's no gaps in that process.
yeah. So another thing I'd like to get your take on a little bit, Riley, is we've got this expanding attack surface. We're adding a lot of this new technology, which we want to encourage and do. But as we do it, we've got more connections, more endpoints. It's creating a number of different challenges. What are you seeing, number one, is some of the bigger challenges that are resulting from this expanded attack surface? And is there any sort of repeat vulnerabilities that you keep coming across that people just aren't addressing in a timely fashion?
It definitely comes with its challenges. That's for sure. But as we see these growing surfaces, these growing shop floors, right? We're looking for all these new technologies. They're deploying all these new technologies, whether they're scanners or cameras or different types of robots, or whatever those are. That expansion of that shop floor is really oftentimes difficult to manage, because you have it's what's becoming a very heterogeneous environment. So to expect to have an internal SME that can cover all of those devices, not only from an operational perspective, but also from a security perspective, is very difficult to maintain. Not only stateside, but also kind of across the globe. And when we have all these interconnected operations and all these interconnected sites and functions, we see that there's a lot of opportunity for failure points, and that really also impacts folks that have legacy devices. PLCs especially are designed to withstand very heavy, intense manufacturing environments and continue to run even under pretty crazy operational conditions. So a lot of folks that we work with, and a lot of folks that we see in these different industries, are running legacy systems that maybe aren't connected on that shop floor, but they still want to improve on that security, because even if they aren't specifically part of that connected intranet, we still want to secure those devices if we can, and that proves difficult when some of these devices are from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s that are still functional, but from a cybersecurity perspective, rather dysfunctional.
Absolutely. It's appreciating the robustness, but also being aware of the security dynamics there. And it makes me wonder, when you're working through some of this legacy equipment, is upgrading it and finding the sweet spot for cybersecurity, is it a people thing? Is it a process thing? Is it getting the right tools and technology in place? Probably a combination of all of those, but what's your take there in terms of maybe where to start?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it comes down to the mantra of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if things are running great and it is a legacy system, keep running it, because it's still making us money, and we still want to have that in the system. We don't want to over deploy or replace things that we don't need to replace. But at that same time, what happens when that machine that's 20, 30, 40 years old breaks down? What happens when we lose those configurations that we had for decades, that we need to upgrade to a new system? What is the impact there? And it's significant, because a lot of times those legacy systems are what a growing business was initially built upon, that foundation. And when we see those break down, it causes a very significant impact. So we definitely want to understand and ensure that we're continuing to upgrade, even if the business side versus the operations side doesn't completely agree. We want to continue to make sure that folks are upgrading to those latest products, to ensure that they do have support, and they do have available hardware or available software to them, to make sure that things continue to run.
Yeah. And when we talk about all these connection points, again, going back to this topic of connecting the legacy equipment to the new technologies, one of the big debates that comes up, and we talk about it a lot here on the podcast, is secure by design. There is sort of an understanding when you're bringing this stuff into your facility that the supplier has implemented some of those security measures, but the supplier is also thinking, I'm bringing this into a secure environment, and there can be some, I don't even think it's conflict, but more miscommunication there between the two parties involved. What's your take there in terms of what are some steps maybe on both sides? I think you come from a unique perspective there in talking about making sure that secure by design goal is realized.
Absolutely. And that is a great question and talking point. But I think it does fall on both parties, supplier and end user, customer, to not only initially have a secure product that they are purchasing, and to have that assurance that they have a quality product to deploy on the shop floor that is secure out of the box. But when it comes to maintaining secure operations on that customer side, it's very important, when those new devices are implemented, to have the proper training and to continuously retrain, whether it's for new folks or retraining current employees, to ensure that they maintain secure practices when they are engaging with those systems. A lot of times we'll see folks that deploy something that was sold to them. They say, okay, this is ready to go, secure,
Yeah.
ready to rock, and then you come back to it 6 months, a year down the road, and folks are going, whoa, this isn't secure at all. Well, we aren't using it securely. We've circumvented some of the secure steps of the process. We've kind of gone our own way, and are leveraging the tool maybe in a capacity that isn't how the manufacturer intended, and that's where that breakdown and like you mentioned, that miscommunication between that supplier and that customer can occur.
Well, another part of those dynamics is at the time that it was implemented, it may have been completely secure, but in the meantime, vulnerabilities occur all the time. There's constantly this need for patching that we've seen more and more prominently take place and be a big part of the OT environment. Have you worked at all with folks in terms of trying to develop a patching strategy, or when do we get to this stuff? Because as you know as well as anybody, downtime is a killer, obviously, in this field. So how do we work out some effective ways to patch some of those vulnerabilities?
That is a huge focus of Auvesi MDT and a focus point of our Octoplant product in securing that OT layer. So when it comes to the end user and these customers, these facilities that have so many different devices that are running all different levels of firmware and all different types of software and editors that they use to keep their production running. It is a huge burden for these folks to constantly run around and ensure that they have the latest update, a CVE, a common vulnerability and exposure that was just released by a particular device's manufacturer, to stay current on all of those. I mean, there's so many, and to stay current is such a huge burden to bear for not only the OT folks but also the IT folks to manage and keep up with. And I think that's something that our Octoplant product does extremely well, is help proactively identify those vulnerabilities and point those customers and those users to that remediation plan and that specific documentation to address those issues right when they're presented on the shop floor, and provide that remediation plan, so they, even if they do have a critical vulnerability on their shop floor, they can take quick action to mitigate that risk and minimize their overall risk for a breach.
So we talked a lot about the challenges that we have. Riley, here, maybe you can talk about some of the other opportunities we have. You've mentioned a couple things with Auvesi MDT in terms of what they do to help in the cybersecurity realm. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the company and some of the things you guys are working on.
Absolutely. So Auvesi MDT is a merging of two companies who have essentially led the OT backup and version control space since the 90s and early 2000s. So the combination of Auvesi Inc. out of Landau, Germany, and MDT Software based out of Alpharetta, Georgia, in the U.S. Merging of those two companies a few years ago to release the latest and greatest Octoplant. And Octoplant is a very robust tool, not only for the standard user, so that's your maintenance, engineering, production control teams, but also we've vastly improved on the reporting capabilities. So understanding those insights from a top level.
Riley, want to pick your brain a little bit on some of the bigger topics too we see in industrial cybersecurity. Perhaps the biggest one, and some people feel like we're talking about a little too much, it's artificial intelligence. I mean, AI is going to play a role in so many different things. ChatGPT got everybody thinking about it on a different level. But what are you seeing in terms of AI? Is this a tool for both sides? Is it something you guys are working on a bit more, or what's your take?
I like AI, and I also think that it's kind of an industry buzzword, quite frankly. I would like to see a little bit more from AI as we move forward, and that AI buzzword is kind of a focal point for a lot of sales. We are working on some AI tools at Auvesi MDT to better facilitate those insights and things from the Octoplant product. But overall in the OT IT space, I think AI can really be leveraged to point folks in the correct direction to take action. But when it comes to managing all of those different devices, you do need to prep the system appropriately. I don't foresee AI doing that at any point in the near future. Hopefully, at some point in the far future, it can manage things for you. You just click a button and let her rip. It goes on its own. But I think that at this point, AI is most appropriately leveraged in the summary of those analyses that are taking place in those underlying systems, and less so as a fix-all solution for all of the problems that you might see in an organization.
Absolutely.
Maybe soon, but I haven't seen it in the current state.
Yeah, AI, it's very polarizing. I think right now we're figuring out, we know what the bad guys are using it for, and it's figuring out the right ways to use it for the good guys, and how they can implement it most successfully. Another big issue that's coming to the forefront, and it's kind of connected with AI, because we don't always have enough OT cybersecurity specialists. We don't always have enough folks who understand the dynamics of the environment and everything that's needed to keep it secure. What have you come across in terms of manufacturers trying to fill in some of those gaps and find the right people to sort of head up that OT security team?
That's a great point. A lot of customers that I've worked with over the past year or so have come to us in need of a solution that helps them, because they do not have all of that background knowledge and that continuous experience dealing with these cybersecurity elements. Obviously, from an IT perspective, those folks certainly have quite a deep level of understanding of what can impact those systems. But from an OT standpoint, that has not been the focus of a lot of these folks in production control, maintenance, engineering, and to be able to provide a tool to those folks that points them in the right direction, maybe not to address a vulnerability themselves, but to at least enable them with accurate, appropriate data to address those issues and get the correct internal SME involved. Is very critical, I think. And there's a lot of people at these organizations that wear a lot of hats, and when it comes to keeping the line running versus addressing a cybersecurity issue, you're going to keep the line running. Yeah. And whenever you have free time, we'll address the cybersecurity issue. But being able to provide a product that helps with those insights and helps address those issues very quickly and easily for our customers is very important, I think, when it comes to managing that shop floor and ensuring that folks are equipped with the data they need to make informed decisions.
No, absolutely. It is interesting. It's fighting that dichotomy between keeping everything running but also slowing down to address a lot of these issues to help prevent something bad from happening going forward. It's going to be an ongoing struggle. Riley, kind of wrapping things up here a little bit, as you look ahead, maybe 12, 18 months, what do you think are some of the bigger trends that are going to be affecting industrial cyber?
I think we're going to continue to see hackers doing what they do worst, right? And I wish they wouldn't, but they will continue to do it. And I think for a lot of folks and a lot of these organizations, they understand that threat is imminent. And I think we're going to see these companies, these organizations, kind of go in two different directions. The first direction would be, we need to address this now, before it impacts and before we make headline news. And the other direction is, let's save some money here and let's take our chances. We haven't been hacked before. Maybe we won't in the future. Let's kind of roll the dice here. And we would certainly like to see more folks taking that proactive approach. And the customers that we work with, most certainly are, proactively addressing those gaps in their systems and their network security. and leveraging the Octoplant tool where necessary to accomplish that. But yeah, I think over the next year or two, we're going to see folks really coming back around, saying, "Hey, I know a couple years ago we didn't address this. Now it's time to address it. It's becoming an imminent threat. We feel the hacking community is breathing down our necks, and we need to do something." So I think it's going to continue to get more popular.
Yeah, so hopefully we can take some of those number twos and put them into the number one column for the benefit of everyone involved. I'm curious, Riley, is there any shared characteristics or commonalities between some of those that sort of fall in that second column in terms of the ones that want to wait before addressing some of these concerns?
I think when it comes to the folks that are more comfortable with the status quo rather than being a transformative group in that particular vertical, in that particular space, I think a lot of times it comes down to resource availability, right? Cybersecurity is, an expensive resource. The software tools, the training for team members, and ensuring compliance is certainly, an expensive ask. And when you have folks that again are wearing multiple hats and they have to decide between keeping the line running and addressing, a maybe from a cybersecurity perspective, I think that those folks are, kind of putting themselves behind the eight ball, but definitely, with the right information and the correct software and tools available to them to help them more easily and more quickly make informed decisions, I think it would be an easier ask for them to adopt these solutions and adopt this mindset. And I think that's the biggest thing that we could do there.
Thanks, Riley. And for more information on the work he and his colleagues are up to, you can check him out at auvesy-mdt.com. That's AUVESY-MDT.com. Also like to thank you for joining us today, and to catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or mbtmag.com. You can also check Security Breach out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@IEN.com. For Riley Groves, I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.